In many cities around the world, there are Chinatowns that were established by Chinese immigrants who came as laborers. The largest and oldest Chinatown in North America is located in San Francisco. Today, San Francisco is celebrated for its core values of diversity and integration and recognized as a leading sanctuary city for immigrants. Yet, over 150 years ago, it was the birthplace of anti-immigrant policies in the United States. The 1848 discovery of gold mines in California marked the beginning of westward expansion and a transformative era of economic growth in the United States. Starting in this period, Southern Chinese laborers migrated to the United States to construct the Transcontinental Railroad, connecting the East and West coasts and ushering in Chinese immigration to America. In 1860, when the Qing dynasty lifted the overseas travel ban under the Great Qing Legal Code, Chinese people began to be traded globally as labor commodities, known as coolies. Chinese migrant laborers settling in the United States via Angel Island in San Francisco were forced to live in Chinatowns due to conflicts with European immigrants. In the 1870s, as the Transcontinental Railroad neared completion, an economic recession and mass unemployment fueled resentment toward Chinese workers, whose diligence and frugality were blamed for lower wages and higher unemployment. Anti-Chinese sentiment grew, epitomized by slogans like "The Chinese must go." In 1882, this hostility led to the Chinese Exclusion Act, the first U.S. law banning immigration from a specific nationality. The Chinese Exclusion Act barred Chinese laborers from migrating to the United States. A 1947 map portrayed San Francisco as an exotic tourist destination, while an 1885 map of Chinatown highlighted segregation between whites and Chinese. By 1924, the ban extended to all Asians and remained in effect until 1952. The history of migrant labor is deeply linked to the evolution of capitalism. Beginning in the 16th century, European powers established plantation colonies in the Americas and Asia, dependent on enslaved labor from the transatlantic slave trade. Imperial powers like Britain recruited laborers from southern China's coastal regions, dispatching them to colonies worldwide. In the 17th and 18th centuries, enslaved workers toiled in Bolivia's Potosi silver mines, Caribbean plantations, and Mississippi River cotton fields as trade commodities in the capitalist accumulation system. Irish laborers migrating to Britain in the late 18th century and coolies relocating to places like Penang or San Francisco in the 19th century were similarly commodified as trade goods. Migrant labor thus spread globally as part of the slave trade. The use of slave labor began to be outlawed after 1833, when Britain passed the Abolition of Slavery Act, followed by similar measures in other countries. In South Korea, Namhae County is home to a German village where Korean miners and nurses who had been invited to Germany as laborers in the 1960s eventually returned to settle. In the mid-20th century, Germany introduced the guest worker program to meet industrial labor needs. However, the policy failed, as forcibly repatriating migrant workers who wished to stay proved difficult. The phrase "we called for labor power, but people came" arose during this time. As of 2019, migrant workers made up 5% of the global labor force, totaling 169 million out of approximately 3.482 billion. Migrants generally have higher labor participation rates than non-migrants, with migrant women showing notably higher rates than their non-migrant counterparts. Migrant workers are concentrated in high-income regions, with 46.3% of migrant workers worldwide, or about 78 million, in Northern, Southern, and Western Europe and North America, where 1 in 5 workers is a migrant. In East Asia, migrant workers make up just 0.5% of the workforce, but South Korea stands out, with approximately 1 million migrant workers accounting for 3% of its workforce as of 2021. South Korea's employment permit system facilitates short-term labor migration but has unintentionally contributed to an increase in undocumented foreign residents and enabled multi-layered exploitation of their irregular status. In 2020, Mr. Ten, a third-generation Karaisky from Uzbekistan, secured a job at an auto parts factory through an unlicensed labor dispatch agency. After 6 months, he realized he was being charged more than twice the agreed introduction fees each month. He could not protest due to language barriers and the threat of being reported as undocumented. Labor migration has permeated every era and society. In ancient Athens, resident aliens, or metics, worked as soldiers and skilled artisans, serving as indispensable contributors to society. Despite restricted citizenship, they mingled with citizens during festivals, actively engaging in cultural life. Throughout history, migrant labor has created networks across eras, fostering cultural hybridity. At the root of today's migrant labor issues is the perception of labor as merely a market commodity. Viewing migrant labor solely as a tradable commodity fosters the belief that these issues can be solved by reforming capitalism or promoting individual morality. However, migrant labor, like other social phenomena, is inseparable from its cultural context. The hybridity and creativity inherent in migration expand intercultural exchange and inspire the creation of new, blended cultures. What matters more for workers living as global citizens is not just recognizing the rights of foreign workers, but rather removing the foreign label from their identity. In every society where people from Uzbekistan, Mexico, and Vietnam live and work, we must cultivate shared civic values that build inclusive communities and ensure equality for all.